I'm sorry.
Not at all. Sorry.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, tell me.
So, we really enjoyed your keynote speech. And what I saw throughout the whole thing was how you were able to metaphorize what was happening in the United Nations with what everyday people are doing. So, my question is, you had mentioned examples. So, if someone were to want to follow the same pattern as you, what would be something that you recommend for them to do?
I would essentially say that anything that you do which contributes to the betterment of another individual or a community or society, and you can take it in increasing stages, is something that would work for the United Nations, because we should stop thinking of the United Nations as something which works only at a global or planetary level. It has to be something which works at the level of each individual human being. And that's why I use the phrase peopleization rather than globalization. It's not just countries coming together, it's 7 billion people coming together and helping each other out. And if you remember in his message to this conference, the Secretary General said that there is virtually no subject that is studied or taught at a school or college which does not have a United Nations dimension. And I think by extension, there's no action of good, no positive action by any individual which cannot work to serve a United Nations cause.
That's very true. Now, we're at 70 years the United Nations being in existence. What do you see CTON doing in the future in order to keep that, as you said, making ordinary civilians involved with everyday things that the UN stands for? What do you see in the future?
I've actually said at conferences before, and I've certainly said to the chair of CTON, Anne-Marie Carlson, that CTON no longer just stands for Committee for Teaching About the United Nations. It stands for the Committee for Transforming Attitudes About the United Nations. Because when you talk to people and make them realize exactly what we've been saying, that individual actions can make so much difference, then people realize the United Nations is not something totally separate or a body that you just go and visit and read about, that you are a part of it and it is a part of you. So I think CTON has an immense task ahead of it in the sense of being able to work with students in building that community of understanding. And I think it's doing a fantastic job.
Just to wrap things up, what do you think about the different associations like Delta Sorority, different colleges? What do you think in general of what they have done so far?
I think they've done two very important things. One is they've been able to create a community around what I would call a noble idea. And I think I don't want to use a trite phrase, but I think that's the best phrase I can do. An exalted idea, a noble idea, and then get people to come around to it, which is a dramatic achievement in itself. But more important is having brought those people around the idea, then get them to actually implement projects which can give that idea life. And I think Delta Kappa Gamma, the universities, Bridgeport and others represented here, other civil society organizations have all worked immensely in this fashion and thereby are serving the cause of the United Nations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If there was something about this conference that you wanted people to remember, what would it be?
Well, two things. One is that the UN has done a good job over the last 70 years. It's not always been perfectly successful, but that's because it's been a very challenging world, and the challenge has evolved over time. The second thing I'd like people to remember from my particular perspective is that the future is very much in the hands of the younger generation who must be educated to rise to the task. And the points I was making in my presentation were intended to bring attention to the fact that we're not going to be able to have a peaceful and stable world if we don't provide the education and opportunities for young people to take control of their tomorrow. That's the bottom line. And they cannot take control of their tomorrow without education. I'm passionate about education, and it's not for no reason. It's because it's real. That's something we must do.
Okay, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks so much.